Hi all. Everything in my videos is pulled from the public domain and I am using them under the Fair Use Fair Dealings guidelines. Everything I say is my own opinion. You should look into this information for yourself, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. Well, you guys wanted one long video, so here you go. This is going to be chock full of information. This is all about a follow-up to the PR stunt that was pulled yesterday by Meghan Markle, where she came out in the New York Times about her miscarriage. Several of you wrote things on my video that were really spot on, and so I wanted to explore them, and here we go. So to start with, let's look at the Zoom calls. She is saying that her miscarriage occurred in July. That, of course, did not stop her from appearing on multiple Zoom calls, and here's the first one that occurred in July.
We have to, in this moment in time, say, we're going to have to be a little uncomfortable right now, because it's only in pushing through that discomfort that we get to the other side of this.
Here's a video from mid-August where she says it's good to be home.
Fascinating, at least from my standpoint and my personal experience the past couple of years, is the headline alone, the clickbait.
Here's one of her Zoom calls from mid-August.
For a conversation.
Stop, we're not.
No, but it's true. But it's true. This is the world that you guys are going to inherit. I'm saying you guys because I'm predicting that most of you
And ours.
She put out a message about voting in the election, sitting next to Harry.
And our voices are heard. Your voice is a reminder that you matter.
And we had the Fortune 500 interview where she had to pay to be on it.
It's about being authentic. And if you look back at anything that I've said, it's really interesting.
Now, there is a lot more Zoom calls, and I could continue, but I'm not going to. You guys get the point. Since July, she has been on call after call, interview after interview, and she looks perfectly fine. But what you don't see is what's going on behind the scenes, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So behind the scenes, what's going on is, first, the Cambridge's dog died. Eugenie and Jack took over Frogmore Cottage, which had been sitting empty since the two of them did a runner. Queen and Prince Philip had their 72nd marriage anniversary, and they were pictured holding a card from the children from the Cambridge family. It's just come out that after filing a lawsuit and swearing in a statement to the court that she had nothing to do with the book, that she did collude with the book, and she, in essence, perjured herself. And of course, we have the entire wreath-laying debacle where they went to the cemetery days earlier because the weather doesn't match up, took pictures, copyrighted them, merged her clothes, and then screamed foul at the royal family for not allowing a personal wreath to be laid when nobody lays a personal wreath. We all know that Meghan and Harry just hired a new PR person who used to be the head of Pinterest. This is their 12th PR person. And of course, the news came out that Meghan and Harry were no longer being used as magazine covers because nobody would buy the magazine if they were on the cover. Their sales were plummeting. So what do you do when your PR is terrible and everything you do is criticized and you expect to be the most fabulous couple in the world, and instead people really dislike you, especially after you've been caught in lie after lie after lie and you've been labeled a narcissist? What do you do? Well, if you're a savvy PR person, you put out an article that claims you had a miscarriage 5 months ago in order to get sympathy. Now, stick with me on this. Let me just let you know that being pregnant, you can still have abdominal cramping and stomach pain, and that could be completely normal. Early pregnancy clamps can be linked to things like constipation, increased blood flow to the uterus, round ligament pain from the round ligament stretching. You can have cramping after an orgasm while you're pregnant. You can have a urinary tract infection. You can have dehydration. All of these can cause cramping. It does not mean you're having a miscarriage. The thing that really caught my attention in this, look at me, I've had a miscarriage, was the letter that she put out. We all know that the two of them have tried to jump on every bandwagon that there is, trying to find a niche for themselves. In this letter, she talks about her miscarriage. Then she brought up George Floyd. Then she brought up Breonna Taylor. Then she talks about wanting to help some stranger in New York. Then she brings up her statement about asking about if I'm okay. And she tried to explain it away in her letter. So in one fell swoop, she's pulling for sympathy and she's mentioning everything that she and Harry have tried to jump on. And she's trying to put a twist on the words, which literally crucified her, as she was talking about if I'm okay, as she's standing in the middle of one of the poorest areas of Africa, where she's been wearing hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of clothing, and she's had the red carpet pulled out for her, and she turned the whole thing to nobody's asked me if I'm okay. With that being said, after I got done reading her letter, I thought, oh my God, I really think she wrote several sections of Finding Freedom. I was stunned when I read it. And let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. This comes from the book and it reads, "Theirs was a love story that took hold in Africa, where now Megan, on the last day of an incredible 3-week stay, stretched her body into the perfect warrior pose. The rising sun washed over her makeshift yoga garden, while an exotic flock of birds that looked as if they had had their tails dipped in pots of colorful paints serenaded her." And this comes from the article that was printed in the New York Times. "After changing his diaper, I felt a sharp cramp. I dropped to the floor with him in my arms, humming a lullaby to keep us both calm. The cheerful tune a stark contrast to my sense that something wasn't right. I knew as I clutched my firstborn child that I was losing my second. And hours later, as I lay in a hospital bed holding my husband's hand, I felt the clamminess of his palm and kissed his knuckle, wet from both our tears." As someone who has had multiple miscarriages, I can tell you that you don't get one cramp, sink to the floor, and start with, "I'm losing my baby." Medically, it just doesn't happen that way. I stand by my first video that this is a PR stunt meant to bring sympathy and to try to turn the tide of their public persona. It was meant to bring up everything that she's been involved in and somehow clear the air and explain it all, which is why everything that's happened just about in the last year was included in that letter. As much as I hate to say it, I have to say one more thing. I wonder if they were paid for this article. Since they insist on being paid for everything else, from pics at events that are copyrighted and sold, to her merching the clothes that she's wearing an hour later on the Megan's Mirror website, it wouldn't surprise me one bit. So my last statement to this is also to point out that there are two people who are going on and on and on about their privacy. This could have remained private, but since their PR is so bad and since they're looking for a niche, I think now instead of the Black Lives Matter niche and instead of the election niche and instead of all these other things that they've tried, now she's going to go for this as her place to help women who have had miscarriages. It also goes without saying that this is such a taboo subject, as she's claiming it is, that nobody would dare criticize it because it would make them look bad if they dared to say this is a PR stunt. Well played by her new PR team. I guess they're worth all the money that they're being paid. But is this high that they're riding going to last? Well, unless she's pregnant again, which there's rumors that she is, no, I don't think it's going to last. Okay, I lied. I do have one more thing to bring out. Several of you remarked on my original video about Steel Magnolias and that she had copied something. And I looked and I couldn't find it. And I remarked on the video what were people talking about. And I didn't receive any responses. But if you do respond, let me know. And I will add it to the video. So while I got plenty of comments on the Versed video, now that I've put all of this information out there, I would really still like to hear from you guys. What do you think about all of this mess? And keep a lookout in the next day or two for my next video I'm working on, which is all about Travelist. Have a great day and enjoy your turkey.